Thanks for tuning in to the Silvertrac Extra, your source for the best tips, tricks, and how-tos to dominate the security industry, helping you improve your business, win more contracts, and crush your competition. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
Hey there everyone, welcome to the Silvertrac Extra, episode number 7. We're really excited to be sharing a slightly different format with you today. Rather than interviewing a guest, we're going to handle a very specific topic here and keep this episode really short. So only 10 minutes here. Thanks so much for joining us. And today we'll be going over geofencing versus breadcrumb tracking. Again, I'm Johnny Page. I'm joined here with Chris Anderson. First, let's start off. Let's define geofencing. And a lot of you have probably looked into some different guard management software options. So geofencing is a feature that pops up a lot. It's a hot topic. A lot of people like to know about it. Geofencing is the constant tracking of an officer on a property. So an officer has a device in his pocket. If he walks around the property 10 times, we'll see the path in which that officer took. An additional feature on top of that is we can draw a line around the property inside the software and see when the officer leaves the site. So we're basically setting up a virtual fence around the property and then also tracking the officer while he's in the property. The alternative to that would be breadcrumb tracking. So breadcrumb tracking is verifying the GPS location on a per instance basis. So officer scans a QR code, or the officer submits an incident, or they're responding to a task, we're going to get a GPS pinpoint of where they're at. But if the officer is not interacting with the software or the handheld device at all while walking around the property, we're not going to get any GPS verification. So Chris, what are some of the problems associated with geofencing?
Well, geofencing originally was looked back when we put our software together. We actually had geofencing set up with our software, but the problem was battery life. The constant monitoring of the officer on a cell phone, the battery is limited. So if the phone wasn't charged properly, right, or they were doing a lot of work with issue types or submitting issues, it killed the battery within probably 4 or 5 hours. That's just one of the issues.
Yeah, because I think one of the major advantages of Silvertrac is that we don't have to have additional devices or any additional hardware. So this can be used on any consumer level device. So you can go to Verizon, Sprint, AT&T and pick up any type of smartphone, Android or Apple, and use Silvertrac. The downside of that is that we're not getting the geofencing. But Chris, we've discovered over quite a few years of doing this that really geofencing doesn't add very much value to the end customer. So why is the breadcrumb tracking like a successful alternative, and how have some of our customers been successful despite having like a geofencing device?
Well, breadcrumbing is a lot cheaper, John. It really is. I mean, if you set up your properties correctly, you set up your address and your location, you train your officer, you can go into the monitor and you can set up specific requirements. In other words, if he misses a checkpoint, it can send you an alert. It's really no different than geofencing, because either way, you have to go in and look, right? You have to go in and look at the officer. So if he's walking around geofence, it'll send you an alert tone to let you know that he left the location. And if you're doing that across the board with all your officers, that's a lot of time, right, on supervising just on the accountability side. So we changed it. We just went directly to the actual breadcrumb, where we created a specific issue or a task that was supposed to go out to remind them. For an example, 15 minutes for a pull lockup. If he wasn't there, it would send us an alert an hour after that time if he actually missed the hit. So we were notified either way. And then we could counsel, supervise, and get the person back on track. And if they weren't working out, get rid of them, plain and simple.
Yeah, and I think as an operator, you have to ask yourself the question, what really helps deliver value to your customer? So if you think about geofencing, you're basically making an attempt to prove that you are satisfying the bare minimum requirements of the site in that your officer is there. So you're going through all this effort to just prove that he's there. Well, actually, the customer is going to be hiring you for much more than just being on site. So using the breadcrumb to verify where the officer was at when they're submitting incidents or when they're scanning QR codes or checkpoints, that is useful in that we're just making sure that what he was reporting was valid. However, we want to be, the customer is looking to have much more value delivered than just proving that the officer was there, right?
Yeah, all you're really doing is showing them that you're accountable, or you got an accountability tool. But if that client really wanted to get in and take a look, I'll tell you how many times that when we had geofencing, we were constantly getting calls and being alerted that the guard left the property. And a lot of the times it's him, he parked his car down the street, right, because he was taking a lunch break, right?
Yeah.
So here we're calling this guy, and he's trying to take a lunch break, or he had an emergency for a minute, he had to leave because there was a incident down the street that was related to the property, right? So a lot of that caused us having to get on the phone, call the clients, and explain why that officer left property. So this way it was a lot easier. Now we're setting this up to where when we're doing something for the client, it's all based on a specific issue, and it saved us all kinds of time. The clients liked it a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. We've never had a complaint of someone saying, "Hey, why isn't geofencing available in this?" Because when you really get into it, although it's flashy early on and it's nice to be able to say in the sales conversation, at the end of the day, 6 months down the road, your customer isn't particularly interested in going in and seeing all the, where the officer walked all over the property. They're looking for the end result, or what we call the desired outcome on the property. So if you can deliver that with the minimum amount of tracking or technology or minimal investment in that, because geofencing is significantly more expensive. It's going to require an additional device. It's going to require additional setup time, and just it causes more problems than it ends up solving. Whereas if you can use the breadcrumb tracking to verify where the officer was at, making sure that the accountability was there, and then just really focus on delivering the desired outcome to the customer, this question really will rarely come up until, of course, sometimes you get a bad officer on site no matter how good your hiring processes are. And then there's enough built in with the breadcrumb tracking to notice when the officer is underperforming before your customer knows. And that's really all you're looking for.
We have a lot of clients, John, that will use the system as far as the breadcrumb to where officer will report every 30 minutes or an hour. It's a check-in. Right? So they'll actually open up a new issue in Silvertrac called check-in. Officer will actually take a photograph and record that he's checking in. That way, dispatch or supervisors that are set up under that notification to be notified can see that the officer's there on site, because you can look it up and you can see it via GPS. So again, eliminates that. No different than a Deggy tool, similar to, right? Because the guy had to go around and hit a one or strike a button. That was missed all the time, So training is big in the very beginning. If you just explain to the officer, this is what we're doing, this is the purpose, you can eliminate a lot of the cost in geofencing.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point. A picture's worth 1,000 words. If you can take 10 seconds, less than that even, launch the camera, take a photo, and attach it to your checking in or just your regular rounds, how valuable is that? Your customer gets to see that the officer was exactly where they're at. They're seeing their property there in the device. Again, we can beat the dead horse, but I think our customers will find, and most of the people out there, whether you're considering any type of guard management software, anything like that, you're going to find that the trade-off, the value that's delivered from a geofencing tool is much lower. There's a much higher return on your investment when you purchase a tool that uses breadcrumb tracking, not requiring the additional devices, not requiring any of the additional setup, and really still delivering quite a bit of value to you and your customer. So, Chris, anything else to add on this geofencing versus breadcrumb tracking?
No, the only thing I would like to add is, we brought out that QR code feature, right? So if you do a QR code, you set that up, all the officer would have to do is scan that QR code. Again, the GPS is applied and a photograph is required. That eliminate that. it's another feature that we put in that really helped with eliminating the geofencing too.
So if you like more information on geofencing versus breadcrumbs or anything else circling around garbage management software, we certainly aim to be a resource for you in the decision process, and then also for, of course, all the Silvertrac customers. So visit us at silvertracsoftware.com. You can connect with us there. Until next time, I'm Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
And this is a Silvertrac Extra. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been another episode of the Silvertrac Extra. For more insider information, visit silvertracsoftware.com/extra. Listen on the go by subscribing in iTunes. Want to hear your questions answered on the show? Visit silvertracsoftware.com/questions to submit your requests.